Hey guys, hope you got some coffee in your veins so you can take this talk in, because I know the topic of numbers is always people are I don't want to do that. But I like numbers, and I'll tell you why in a bit. So first off, a bit about me. I've been doing marketing and specializing in digital marketing for almost 10 years now. My day job is as a digital strategist in a Bulgarian startup called Enhansive. We help people find their true potential by creating resumes that really represent everyone and represent your strengths, so you can check it out as well. And I'm a bit of a science nerd, so if you want to talk about CERN or black holes or something, we can discuss that at the after party tonight. And looking back, if you told me in high school, okay, Vasi, you'll be in 15 years' time, you'll be sitting at a desk, looking at Excel spreadsheets, and loving it, I would never have believed you. I have an older brother. He's 9 years older than me, and he was always looking at me in complete rage in front of algebra questions and being well, what's difficult about that? It's super easy. Why are you having trouble with it? And I never liked math. I never liked any of the exact sciences. So I was okay, I'm going to go in marketing. That's going to be easy enough, right? And then, little by little, I understood that without numbers, you really can't do anything in marketing. So I had to learn that as well, and it turned out that it's an amazing thing to learn. So I'm going to talk to you about data, and I'm going to talk to you what we can do with data and how we can make better informed decisions with data. So first off, why do we need to measure at all? What's the reason behind basically sitting down in front of Google Analytics and pouring through numbers for a whole day or something? First off, I think that having data is the only source that you can have that tells you exactly where you stand. If you've put down a goal for your business, you can't really know where you're at, what your progress is, without having data. And that's the only objective way of doing it. So having data also helps you find out how to improve and find out how to move forward. And actually, if that progress is still not where you want it to be, it also helps you find a way how to actually get where you want to be. And then the next thing is finally killing this anecdotal evidence and going not after the things that a friend of yours told you about or that someone at your team is thinking is a good idea, but actually looking at the numbers and finding if that's a real thing or not. We were looking at our homepage a couple of months back, and the main call to action there was craft your future. And one of my colleagues was but that doesn't make sense. People wouldn't know what to click on. Craft your future is really not that actionable now, is it? So we were well, fair enough. If you feel like that, let's check the numbers. And we did an A/B test with your usual boring version of sign up, which is very clear, very understandable for users. And we saw no difference in signups. We saw no difference in clicks. We didn't see any difference in any shape or form that makes sense. So it helps you not just go on a limb, go on a hunch, but actually look at the data and see what works better for you. And the last thing that I think that is really valuable for is being deliberate about your work. If you can follow the numbers, you can know what you need to do to get there, and you can look at a very good marketing idea, an amazing campaign that would be super interesting for people, but that doesn't actually drive you towards your end goal. So you can use numbers as a way to leave off everything that's not going in the right direction, and actually then your analytics will serve as the person with the scissors cutting out all the exciting but non-efficient ideas. So just a couple of points that I want to make at the beginning here. So we know why I'm talking about both qualitative data, so not just numbers, but also people, and quantitative data. That's a concept that they call the local and the global maximum. So if your website is currently here, somewhere here, in terms of results, with qualitative data, you can tweak out copy, you can change colors, you can make navigation better, and so on, to get to here. But actually getting to this place, that can only be done if you also have qualitative information, if you have feedback from your customers, if you actually spend some time and talk to people and ask people and form ideas about how to change. Because there might be something completely off your field of vision that only real users can tell you. So when I'm talking about data, I'm not talking just about the numbers there. I'm also talking about people. And we can't go only in analytics and form decisions only there, because then you get a bit myopic. So you're only looking at one thing, while there might be something completely different that works better. And looking at that, it's helpful to think of analytics and improving your business based off on numbers as an evolution. So first off, we would have small A/B tests that have a clear winner, like what you generally think about when you think about experiments and optimizing websites, like tweaking the copy, updating some colors of buttons, and so on and so forth. Then you would go into multivariate testing, so combining a couple of different options to create more variations there and actually test a bunch of ideas at scale at the same time. Then you would go in the fizzy bits, where you would test different copy, completely different copy, and use persuasion techniques to get people to do what you want them to do, and so on. And lastly, you would get to that sweet spot of getting user feedback and creating big differences of the variations you're testing. And then you would do completely different versions of your checkout or your about page or whatever works for you, based off on this user feedback. So we'll be talking about both qualitative and quantitative data and how to use it. So the other point I want to make is about benchmarks. And people love benchmarks. People are completely like, okay, I get what you're talking about, but can you tell me what's the usual conversion rate of B2B SaaS companies in East Asia? Or can you tell me for 20 to 35-year age group, what's the usual CTR? And that's a quote I really love from Avinash Kaushik. He's the analytics evangelist of Google. And he says, the average conversion rate in the USA is 2%, whether you're selling elephants or iPods. So don't look at benchmarks, because they are a way for you to either sit around and think what's wrong with my business? Why am I not getting there? Or a way to just sit down, relax, and say, okay, well, I've got 2.6 conversion rate. I'm fine. I don't have to optimize any of that. So just as an amateur runner, I'm only looking at my own personal results. And I'm only looking at how quickly I'll run 5 kilometers. And I don't think about how other people run 5 kilometers. And I only try to be better against my past self. So this is, I would recommend you to do as well. So what can data tell us and how to get there? So that's the meat of the presentation here. So first off, if we look at the usual conversion funnel that I'm pretty sure you're all familiar with by now, so I'm not going to go into detail there, you would first have information about what your audience is. Who are those people? Where are they coming from? What are they interested in? And there at the last bit, what are they interested in, will actually help you form your content strategy, your marketing strategy, form ways to talk to people, and so on. Then you would look at what channels to use, what channels to invest in. You would also look at which part of your content is engaging and which part of it is just not that much up to it. Then you would also look at the ease of interaction of your website. I just see now that that's not readable enough, so I should take a page off of Emmanuel's talk last and really aim for contrast there. So you would look at the ease of interaction of your website. Are people okay with going around it and finding what they're looking for, and so on? And lastly, you would look at whether your website, whether your business, whether your content is moving people to that target action you're interested in. And by target action, I'm talking about all different stuff. It can be your conversion to an actual purchase. It can be your conversion to a newsletter sign up. It can be your conversion to a person just taking the time to stay on your website for more than 15 minutes, or whatever you deem your goal is for a current period of time. So let's look into each of those steps. So first off, who's your user? Who's your audience? Who are those people who actually come and are interested in what you have to say? And I would first off, at this point, look at Google Analytics. And it gives us enough of user demographics to see what people we are already attracting with our content. And of course, with Google Analytics, you can also look at interest targeting. I'm not going to bore you with the technical details. I'm sure you're like responsible adults and you can look it up on your own. But you can also look at interests and in-market audiences and all the less gritty, less specific information, but more on the interest side types of information that you would get. So first off, Google Analytics would tell you who your users are. But the more important thing here is that it will also tell you who are your valuable users. So if I look here, I would first look at the sessions, which I've blurred for company privacy reasons and so on. And you would look at like, okay, I've got a lot of people coming from France, I've got a lot of people coming from Bulgaria, I've got a lot of people coming from the United Kingdom. So I should aim for those guys, right? But it's usually a bit more complicated than that. So then I would also look at what those people are actually doing and see that my most lucrative guys, the ones who are creating their accounts in Enhansive the most, are people from Bulgaria, Spain, and Poland. And I would try to get more of those people on the website because I already know they're interested in what we have to sell and what we have to offer them. So don't just look at the vanity metrics like traffic, look at the actual substance behind that as well. The next thing that you can use to look at your audience is Facebook Audience Insights. And I love that approach for two reasons. First off, you don't even need to have started your business yet before you can survey people that way. And second, it will tell you usually completely different information from Google Analytics, so you can merge this data and form better decisions. So Facebook Audience Insights, it's a tool by Facebook. It's located in their ad options, and you can use it without even spending a dime, which is super cool. And as an example here, I've shown a survey that I did for people who like Lavazza Cafe. Because I was like, okay, let's do something Italian. Let's go all stereotypical about it. And I fell to Lavazza, so that's why. I can gather recommendations for better coffee from you guys later. So if I look at the specific interests of people in Facebook Audience Insights, I'm also going to see what's the difference between the general Facebook population, so all the people on Facebook, and the people that I've targeted here, so the people who like Lavazza Cafe. So first off, I'll see that it's mostly women. It's 51% of women compared to on Facebook in general, there's only 44% women. So that's some difference there already. I would also be able to see that people in IT are coffee addicts, which I already know, but thank God I now have some validation for that. And I would also be able to combat some of my stereotypes and see that actually Romanians really like Lavazza, while Italians are not that crazy about it. So you can both see trends that you're already familiar with and find validation for them, and also see things you thought were true but aren't really. So that's pretty cool, I think. And then the same thing goes for LinkedIn. It has the same tool called website demographics. You first have to trick LinkedIn into thinking you're going to spend some money there and start creating an ad. But then you can just leave it off and you already see website demographics. It works like the usual remarketing pixels you have. It helps you, lets you put a code on your website, and then when people visit the website, LinkedIn tries to correlate them with actual LinkedIn users. So you would see what type of people come to your website. So for Enhansive, that makes a lot of sense because we're looking at business people mostly. And we actually see here that there's a lot of senior people in senior positions who come to our site, so that's good news. I mean, that's the people with the money, so that's always nice. And you can also look at other information in terms of company size and so on and so forth. So if you're in B2B, that would also be something interesting you want to try. So Google Analytics, Facebook Audience Insights, and LinkedIn Website Audiences is the one thing that will help you a lot with finding who your users are. Then the next thing is what channels work. So first off, what's the places where you should push content? Then what's the places where you should invest in advertisements? And so on and so forth. To do that, we would look, of course, at the information we get in Google Analytics in terms of where people come from and so on. First off, I would see that it's actually pretty cool that I have a bunch of people coming to my blog from Reddit and StumbleUpon because I just recently started using that, seeding content there. And I'm already seeing pretty good results. That's a graphic I took out from one of my recent blog posts that was pushed also to Reddit and StumbleUpon. I'm like, okay, I'm getting a bunch of numbers there. I'm getting traction. I'm feeling good about myself. But can you see what's the bad news about this traffic? Those guys are only staying on average for 19 seconds for Reddit and for 3 seconds for StumbleUpon. I do write long blog posts. I doubt that anyone would have found value for 3 seconds there. So it's good to look at vanity metrics, but always remember to correlate the data with additional information that tells you more about the quality of your traffic. So don't just look at the vanity of like how many sessions you got and so on. Aim for quality traffic and find those guys and see what works and what doesn't. And formulate your decisions to invest time in different channels based off on the information you would have there. So the next thing that I would look at is what type of content engages people. And I'm talking a lot about content here. Maybe I should take a step back to say why I'm doing that. When talking about content, it can be all different sorts of things. It can be your product page, or it can be your blog post, or it can be your if you're a media website, it can be a specific article and so on. But I do believe that most information that you can get out of people, you can get it through content. And also that most of marketing nowadays is content marketing. So we need to be aware of that and so on. So whenever there's an issue with how people interact with your site or you're not getting results, I would suggest you look at your content first and see if there's something with that that's not completely up to par there. So again, let's first go to Google Analytics. it's the best place to look at. And again, I would see that I have a bunch of cool blog posts that I suggest you visit and read more of and bump my sessions and my confidence. But I would look at how much time people spend on a page. And you see here, 48 minutes compared to like all the different posts there. So that's good content. I should aim at creating more content like that. And I would also correlate this and pair this metric with something else, and this would be bounce rate. So usually with blog posts, we see really high bounce rates, but this 67%, that's pretty decent. And the reason to do that is to see actually if these 48 minutes come from the fact that people are really interested and engaged with the content I have shared, or if they're just going about, not finding what they want, not seeing how to navigate along with the site. So I can also have very high time on page based off on shitty navigation. So that's also a thing you should keep in mind. So always pair these metrics in ways that give you the most accurate information and the most context. And the same thing here. Here I'm looking at full scroll, so people who have scrolled through the whole page. That's pretty easy. You can do it through Google Tag Manager and implement a code that helps you track that. And I suggest you do, because that's the most valuable metric to see how many people are scrolling through the whole page and seeing the whole content. And then again, because there's a lot of skimmers, I would correlate this with the average session duration on average time spent on the page. But as I said already, it's not all about numbers. And we should aim to spend some time not on the numbers only, but also on people themselves. So how to do that? And the thing that I would suggest is just use one tool, and that tool would be Hotjar, because for small websites, it can be completely free to use if you're okay with having a bit of branding and sharing the love there. And for bigger websites, it's still scalable enough. So the first thing here that I want to point out to is user recordings. That's a functionality where they let you actually get to see how people click on your website and what they do, which is pretty handy. And considering the fact that sites like usertesting.com and so on ask for a bunch of dollars to do that for you, it's an interesting option to also try out. And of course, here you wouldn't be able to actually tell people what to do, and you have to do some guesswork. But you can not only rely on guesswork, but actually ask those people. And if you see that there are specific pages that have high exit rate or high bounce rate and so on, just go talk to people and see what they're missing on this page and ask your questions, and you'll get the answers soon enough. So the other option here is to actually look at answers users are giving you and see what's wrong with the specific web page that you're looking at. So here, again, like a short review of those tools. Like I would look mainly on bounce rate compared with time on site and scroll rate to see if my content is interesting enough. Then having this numbers approach and seeing where the big drop-off points are, I would then check out the pages with the poorest results and look at what people are doing on the page through visitor recordings. And then if I'm still lacking enough of information, I would look at surveys and ask people and make them tell me what's wrong and what they're missing. So putting it all together, here's two examples. Those are the pages from my Google Data Studio report. Data Studio is already a free Google tool that lets you see and combine data from different sources. So this is what I would look at. I would look at my average trends for visits and for newsletter subscriptions and for full scrolls of the page. I would look at the traffic sources. I would look at the landing pages that drove the most people. I would look at the historical session trend for past weeks. And then I would go into a bit more detail, look at the sources that I'm getting, look at their performance one by one, see what geo distribution I'm getting, and see which pieces, which newsletter magnets make the most sense, and see which articles make the most sense. So all of this, shameless plug here, but I came to WordCamp to also share with you additional information that I won't be able to plug into like this presentation time. Look at Data Studio, check it out. I have a very extensive blog post on my page. You saw people are spending 48 minutes on that piece, so it has to be valuable. So you can spend some time there as well and see how to do that and actually get this template if it makes sense for you and for your business. So just quickly run down through the tools I use to do all of this. It's just 5 things, and they're all free, which is great news for all of us. So Google Analytics for actually getting the data out, Facebook and LinkedIn for looking at user information, their interests, their industries, and so on. Google Data Studio to form reports out of all of that and combine different sources of information, and Hotjar for the nitty-gritty stuff that I need to look at with more detail. So that's all from me. I think I just managed to have some time for questions there. If you want to look at those slides and get this information out, they're already up on my website. You can check this out, get the PDF, and like, if you find other valuable content, I would very much like you to share what that was, and yeah, talk to you all after the talk or at the after party.